Back by popular demand, welcome back to Sample for Sample, the series where we take a look at every single sample across 2 records and determine which record has the better samples track by track. And let me just get this out of the way now, this versus was not originally planned to be Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, m.A.A.d versus DAMN. See, my plan at first was to actually have the versus be between Mad Villainy and m.A.A.d by m.A.A.d, since the 20th year anniversary of m.A.A.d is actually coming up soon. But upon further research, turns out that those 2 records have a combined 183 samples to go over. So yeah, safe to say that I'm gonna need more than a week to work on that absolute behemoth of a video, if I don't split it into 2 parts, that is. But not to worry, I do think that these 2 Kendrick records make a pretty good replacement. While Kendrick's music certainly isn't defined by its samples like an m.A.A.d or a Kanye West, for example, both GKMC and DAMN actually have a surprising amount of great samples besides just the obvious ones. But before we get into the proper verses, we're gonna be starting with a little prelude first. Since DAMN's opening track, Blood, is essentially just the skit, and because its only sample is already present on another track on DAMN, it didn't really feel fair to have it go against anything on Good Kid, m.A.A.d. Maybe you could argue Shireen, but that track doesn't have any listed samples, so it's not going to qualify. Anyways, the only sample on Blood comes from the infamous Fox News clip where the 5 are discussing Kendrick Lamar's BET performance.
Lamar stated his views on police brutality with that line in the song, quote, "And we hate the popo, want to kill us in the street, faux show." Lamar stated his views on police brutality with that line in the song, quote, "And we hate the popo."
I know it's been like 8 years since this episode aired, but I am still not over how idiotic some of these takes are. Like, hip-hop has done more damage to young African Americans than racism in recent years is an unfathomably stupid sentence. But I mean, what else could you really expect from Fox News, right? Anyways, moving on to the actual first round, and we've got Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe versus DNA. So starting with Bitch, we've got a single sample that makes up the instrumental from the 2008 Boom Clap Bachelor's track, Tinden Flyver.
I can feel your energy from 2 planets away. I got my drink, I got my music, I will share.
While this is the only sample listed on this song, I wanted to mention a little semi-interpolation that didn't make the final cut. For those who don't know, the original version of Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe actually had Lady Gaga singing the hook.
Bitch don't kill my vibe, bitch don't kill my vibe, I can feel your energy from 2.
Makes for a very interesting what if in hip-hop history had this version been kept. But on to DNA, and it has 3 samples to go over, including the same Fox News clip that was used on Blood, just a different section.
This is why I say that hip-hop has done more damage to young African Americans than racism in recent years.
This is why I say that hip-hop has done more damage to young African Americans than racism.
Then right after that sample, we have the countdown that occurs right before the second beat drop, which is from the 1994 Keith Murray track fittingly titled Countdown.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is my heritage, all I'm inheriting. Money and power, the maker emeritus. Tell me something.
And of course, there's the track's most famous sample, that being the Gimme Some Ganja vocal chop. It comes from a 1982 live performance of Mary Jane by Rick James.
Give me some ganja! Hit it!
Tell me something. You motherfuckers can't tell me nothing. I'd rather die than to listen to you. My DNA.
Now, interestingly enough, if you'll remember from my last sample versus with Kanye, Runaway actually also samples a Mary Jane live performance, although it's a year older. Probably just a coincidence, but still, it's kinda interesting to think if Runaway was an inspiration for Mike Will Made It when he was making the beat for DNA. As for which song I think wins this round though, while I do think Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe sample is pretty iconic in its own right, the Gimme Some Ganja chop is just way cooler, and probably more iconic at this point. So DAMN will officially take the first point. Next up, we've got Backseat Freestyle VS YAH, and already we've got quite a few more samples to check out, mostly from Backseat Freestyle. It has 5 samples and 1 interpolation for 6 total. Starting of course with the classic which comes from the 1970 song Yo Soy Cubano by the Latin soul group the Chaka Chas. Then we have a pair of drum sounds from the same sample library that both contribute to the drums on Backseat Freestyle. First, there's those really hard smacking snares, which are from the ironically titled track Softy as part of the 0G sample library. And then the bells from the track New Ring by 0G again.
Martin had a dream.
Now we may get into this a little more later, but I personally think that a lot of the production on Good Kid, m.A.A.d hasn't aged the best. But I only bring that up now because I think these drum samples are a prime example of dated production still hitting super hard with the way the samples are utilized in the instrumental. I like the funny smack drums is what I'm trying to say. Now next we have the first of many, many interpolations of classic rap songs on Good Kid, M.A.A.d City, with a line taken from the 1998 track 25 Lighters by DJ DMD. A lot of letters in that stage name.
25 lighters on my dresser, yes sir.
Got 25 lighter on my dresser, yes sir.
Well, I think that in most cases where albums have a ton of references to other songs in the lyrics, it can get pretty cheap. Across nearly all of the interpolations on Good Kid, M.A.A.d City, they make complete sense since Kendrick is rapping from the perspective of his younger self, who was listening to all of these classic rap tracks at the time. So of course, for him to take lyrics from a song like 25 Lighters while he's meant to be freestyling in the car with his buddies, it makes perfect sense. Just another great way to further enhance the concept of the record, which I think is really cool. Anyways, the final sample on Backseat Freestyle is of course the Powerpuff Girls vocal chop from Season 2, Episode 4, Beat Your Greens.
Barbarians!
Ugh, nasty.
Look, I know I said the Yo Soy Cubano sample is legendary, but I think this one might be my favorite on the song, purely because I think it's awesome that the goddamn Powerpuff Girls are on a Kendrick Lamar album. And now you might be thinking that this round is a blowout, but the soul sample on YAH is actually really strong in my opinion. The hypnotic melody of the instrumental is a pitch down reverse sample of the 1976 Billy Paul song, How Good Is Your Game? I just absolutely love when samples like this are played around with and warped in this certain way. They always make for such unique sonic palettes. And maybe it's also because I think YAH is just a criminally underrated track, like it is such a vibe, but I think I like its sample more than the 6 on Backseat Freestyle. Feel free to disagree with me on this pick though, since I know it's going to be a super hot take. Moving on to round 3 now, and we've got The Art of Peer Pressure versus Element. The Art of Peer Pressure has 1 sample and 2 interpolations for 3 total, and Element's actually the 3rd song on DAMN so far with only 1 sample. So beginning with Tayop? It's another song where the main instrumental is built off of a sample, this time from the 2011 track by Danish hip-hop group Suspect titled Helt Alene.
Me and my niggas 4 deep in a white Toyota, a quarter tank of gas, 1 pistol and orange soda.
A very weird place to pull a sample from, but I think the more low-key sound works perfectly as a backdrop for Kendrick's immaculate storytelling ability on the song. There's also an interpolation of Absol's verse on Kendrick's own 2011 track, Ronald Reagan Era.
You niggas don't understand, my nigga. I'm on for pill and Remy Red, my nigga.
Usually I'm drug free, but shit, I'm with the homies.
Yeah, nigga, we out for pill and Remy Red, come through.
And last up, another classic rap track interpolation with a reference to Trap or Die by Jeezy in the outro skit.
Last time I checked, I was the man on these streets.
What's that Jeezy song say, nigga? Last time I checked, I was the man on these streets, man. Yeah, that shit.
Another great example of the interpolations playing into the narrative of this album, as the lyrics to Trap or Die fit perfectly with the themes of the next track, Money Trees. Now, as for Element, it's only got 1 pretty loose interpolation, where Kendrick uses the flow from Juvenile's 1998 track, Ha, in his 3rd verse.
That's you with that big body Benz, huh? That's you that can't keep old lady, cause you keep yelling the friends, huh?
Niggas thought they wouldn't go see me, huh? Niggas thought that that real life is the same life they see on TV, huh?
Pretty cold flow, I'll admit, but this round easily goes to The Art of Peer Pressure. Now, round 4 is between Money Trees and Feel, which I can pretty confidently call our first blowout of the verses. Starting with Money Trees, its first sample is actually one that I already went over in my Best Samples and Songs short series, which I think already tells you how much I love it. The main melody of the instrumental is from the 2010 Beach House song, Silver Soul.
Me and my niggas tryna get it, yeah bitch. Yeah bitch. Hit that house, like tell me.
We also get another classic rap track interpolation with a line from E40's 1999 track, Big Ballin' With My Homies.
Big ballin' with my homies.
You know big ballin' with my homies.
Again, super cool imagery, since Kendrick literally says, bump that new E40 after school, the line before he does the interpolation. And finally, we have the gunshot noises Kendrick makes on the song, which are apparently taken from his famous League track, Cartoon and Cereal.
And I run it. And I run it. And I run it.
I wanna be buckethead hoes. No way, hit the streets and we break the code.
Now with Feel, I'm actually going to start us off with the drum sample rather than the melody sample. You'll see why in just a second. The drums on this track come from the 1968 O.C. Smith song, Stormy.
I feel like a chip on my shoulders. I feel like I'm losing my focus. I feel like I'm losing my patience. I feel like my thoughts.
But as for the 2 remaining samples on the track, Interestingly enough, they're stock loops from Loop Masters. This song's intro comes from a loop titled, quote, COF_134_B_change_dopey. And the main instrumental melody is from one called, quote, COF_125_AM_laid out_underwater. And you know what's really cool? I actually managed to find the original song that this loop is made from, which means we've technically got yet another case of sampleception. It's from the 2016 track Don't Let Me Down by Fleury. And I only point out these loops specifically since I feel like loops generally get a lot of flack in the producing world, especially since they can come off as a bit of a cheat code when making a really good beat. But I think the ones on here are a great example of their effectiveness when paired with a really clean drum loop and an insanely talented rapper like Kendrick. Still though, Money Trees wins so easily here. That beach house flip is simply legendary. Now onto Poetic Justice vs Loyalty, probably the hardest matchup so far. These both have really well done samples. But before we talk about them, I can't not mention how hilarious Poetic Justice's existence is in the year of 2024. Especially with the music video too, it's like watching your parents before they got divorced and your dad went to jail for grooming minors. Anyways, the vocal sample in the song is from the 1993 Janet Jackson track, Anytime, Anyplace.
In the thunder and rain.
I recognize your fragrance, hold up.
As for Loyalty, it's got one sample, two interpolations. Of course, there's its most recognizable, the flip of Bruno Mars' 2016 smash hit, 24 Karat Magic. It's been 7 years, and this sample still blows my mind with how creative it is, and just how well it manages to fit. The first interpolation on Loyalty is from Get Your Mind Right Mommy by Jay-Z.
It's a secret society, all we ask is trust.
Secret society, all we ask is trust.
Another pretty cool one, since the mention of a secret society plays into the themes of trust and paranoia on the song. And as for the second interpolation, it's from Shimmy Shimmy Ya by Old Dirty Bastard.
Shimmy, shimmy, y'all, shimmy, yeah, shimmy, yeah. Give me the mic so I can take it away.
Bitch, I'm an asshole, I'm a king. Shimmy, yeah, shimmy, yeah, shimmy, yeah. You can tell your nigga.
Like I said earlier, this one is definitely our toughest matchup yet, but I think I am gonna go with Loyalty purely because of how unique the Bruno Mars sample flip is. Round 6 is between Good Kid and Humble, two songs that truly could not be more different from each other. But starting with Good Kid, and all it's got is two interpolations. One that Pharrell does in the hook from We Live in Brooklyn Baby by Roy Ayers' Ubiquity.
We live in Brooklyn, baby. That's hallucination, baby.
And the second from Kendrick's own verse on the 2011 J-Rock track Hood Gon' Love It.
Said it, thug life, good kid, mad city, mad respect, representing the harbor right. Cause one day you respect the good kid, mad city.
But I mean, come on. The interpolation is literally him just saying the name of the album, on one of its title tracks. I guess you could argue that the way Kendrick says it is similar between the two songs, but that's a massive reach in my opinion. Now as for Humble, there's only one sample to mention, and while it is technically a sound effect, aka my arch nemesis when making these videos, I think its use is actually pretty cool in this track. The siren on the song is from the 1984 sound effect library by Adams and Fleisner, specifically from the track titled Pulsar City Alarm. As opposed to the sound effect just being plopped into the track with no thought whatsoever, here the siren is actually chopped up a little and worked into the beat in a pretty cool way, so it gets a pass from me. In fact, I'm actually gonna give the round to Humble, since Good Kid literally only has interpolations, and pretty lackluster ones too, all things considered. And now, my friends, we finally make it to the round that I was absolutely dreading to script between m.A.A.d City and Lust. And right now I bet you're thinking, why? Just why would I be so intimidated by this round specifically? Well, I'll tell you. As I was researching for this video, I checked my go-to website WhoSample to find all of the listed samples on m.A.A.d City. But as I clicked on m.A.A.d City's page, I was instantly mentally destroyed by the fact that the song has 13 listed samples. And this realization occurring mere minutes after I decided to delay the MF Doom sample versus for its ludicrous number of samples simply broke my spirit. It was official. The sound effects had officially beaten me down to surrender. And so, it is with a heavy heart that I must tell you all, I will not be covering the 3 sound effect samples present in this track. I know, the title is now technically clickbait, but I promise they aren't that interesting. They're literally just police sirens present in the track's background used for like 3 seconds. And come on, there's still 10 samples to go over in this track, still a new record for this series. Last thing I'll say with the sound effects though, if there was enough backlash in the comments for me skipping them, I may reconsider my decision. But until further notice, I'm just gonna gloss over all sound effect samples that I deem not important enough to mention. Anyways, let's just get started with all of the samples on m.A.A.d City now, and obviously for the sake of time, I'm gonna rapid fire through them, so be prepared. First up, we have a vocal sample from the 2019 track Ridin' Roller Coaster by the artist 1000 m.A.A.d.
Where niggas sleepy, walking, waking out that cushy coma, choking so much cloud, I just might suffocate, you know the odor. Light-skinned nigga with his brains blown out, at the same burger stand with.
And as for a 2012 song can sample one from 2019, it's a case of the vocals already existing from a scrapped record that was newly released years after they were already sampled. Now next is another sound effect that gets a pass from me, since it's a pretty widely used one in hip-hop. It's apparently from Spectrasonic's Virtual Instruments, and the track is called MEXFEMALE5, whatever the fuck that means.
Second, plenty cognac and major pain, not the drill sergeant, but the stress.
And believe it or not, that's actually all of the samples present in the first part of the song. It's actually the second that houses the majority of them, starting with the sample recreation of the 1970 B.B. King song Chains and Things.
That's cool. The hood took me under, so I follow the rules.
We've also got the drums taken from the 1968 track from the Chicago soul group 5 Stair Steps titled Don't Change Your Love.
Trip, we in the hood still, so low grab strap, cause G is so real.
And last for the samples, it's that weird trickling string noise that pops in and out of the beat in the second part. It's from the 2003 Outkast track Reset.
Deal with the outcome, a strap in the hand and a burn 10 grams where motherfuckers stand.
Moving on to interpolations now, and we start with one from the 1991 track Growing Up in the Hood by the hip-hop group Compton's Most Wanted.
Wake your punk ass up. The MCA's back in the motherfucking house. Wake your punk ass up. It ain't nothing but.
And for reference, m.A.A.d City's featured artist, MC8, is actually the leader of CMW and the one who originally used the refrain, so he's actually technically interpolating himself here. Next up we have Fresh Outta School Cause I Was a High School Grad, which originates from Ice Cube's 1991 song A Bird in the Hand.
Fresh out of school cause I was a high school grad.
Fresh out of school cause I was a high school grad, sleeping in the living.
After that there's an interpolation of the famous line on Kanye West's We Major.
Projects toe up, gang signs stone up, niggas hats broke off, that's how we grow up.
Projects toe up, gang signs get blown up, cocaine laced in mirror.
And finally, we have not technically a direct interpolation, but rather a direct reference to the 1994 Warren G and Nate Dogg track Regulate.
Regulators, mount up. It was a
Mount up, regulators in the whip, down the boulevard.
Well, that was quite the ordeal. Let's just get started with Lust now, and thankfully it only has 2 samples to go over. First up, the reverse drums on the track actually come from the 1986 Beastie Boys song Paul Revere.
Had a little horsey named Paul Revere, just me and my horsey and a quart of beer.
Wake up in the morning, think about money, kick your feet up, watch you a comedy. Hold up.
Definitely a sample I didn't expect at first, but one even weirder in my opinion is the second sample on the track. It comes with a 2015 track by English hip-hop / indie rock musician Rat Boy, Knock Knock Knock.
Down the door and he's 9 rattles, Russify exit, no time for battles,
And I only call it strange because after giving the whole song a listen, Knock 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 has some heavy punk influence, which I feel like would heavily clash with the smoother, creepier sound of Lust at first. But in my opinion, it's worked in pretty seamlessly. And I'll be honest, I almost want to just give the round to Lust purely out of spite for the ludicrous amount of samples on m.A.A.d City. But at the end of the day, I do think that sample for sample, it does have the better samples than Lust, despite how many of them there are. Finally, we move on to the next round, Swimming Pools versus XXX. Yeah, Love is another track that actually has no listed samples, so we're gonna skip it, unfortunately. This round, thankfully, will go a lot quicker since it only has 4 samples across both songs. First up, Swimming Pools, and it's only got 1 sample from the 2002 track Distance by the American rock band Chrome.
Pull up.
Frank.
Headshot.
Frank.
Sit down.
Frank.
Stand up.
Admittedly, it is a pretty cool manipulation of the original track, but to be honest, I think the instrumental for Swimming Pools is by far the most egregious example of the production on Good Kid, M.A.A.d City aging pretty poorly. To the point where I pretty easily call it my least favorite song across the entire record. Besides Real, of course. Does anyone actually like that track? Anyways, as for XXX, it's got 3 samples. First up, the sung intro by Bacon, which is from his own track America, which he released in 2018.
America. You if it's good to you.
And for those who don't know Bacon, he does all of the sung intros and outros across DAMN, as well as some production on the record. Although XXX is, as far as I'm aware, the only example of vocals of his being released into their own original song. Up next is a sample of the famous horn stab on James Brown's 1976 classic Get Up Off of That Thing.
I'm back!
I chip a nigga a little bit of nothing. I chip a nigga a little bit of nothing.
And lastly, the drums in the second beat from the 1971 Young Holt Unlimited track, Wah Wah Man.
Hail Mary, Jesus and Joseph, the great American flag is wrapped in...
Maybe the easiest round of the verses for me personally. I'm handedly going with XXX. Better song and better samples. Going into the 9th round now, and we've got a score of 3-5 in favor of DAMN, meaning it can guarantee a win in this verse if it just wins one more round. So let's see if Good Kid, M.A.A.d City can tie it up in these next 2. And let me tell you, this next round would be an absolutely insane matchup if this versus was about pretty much anything other than samples. We've got Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst versus Fear. My second favorite Kendrick Lamar song of all time versus my first favorite Kendrick Lamar song of all time. And while I've yapped long enough about how incredible both of these tracks are in previous videos of mine, I haven't really had a chance to mention how amazing their respective samples are as well. Beginning with Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst, and it has 3 samples to cover. Starting with the guitar in part 1's instrumental from the 1971 Grant Green track, Maybe Tomorrow.
When the lights shut off, and it's my turn to settle down, my main concern.
Absolutely gorgeous tone to that guitar, and it meshes so well with the drums, which themselves are from a 1972 Bill Withers song, Use Me.
Keep on using me.
And as for the only sample on the I'm Dying of Thirst half, it's a recreation of vocals from the 1975 track by the jazz vocal group The Singers Unlimited, called My Romance. And again, another beautiful sample use. Those vocal harmonies are just so haunting, especially with the context of the story at this point in the album. And with all 3 together, they might be the best samples across all of Good Kid, M.A.A.d City's track list. However, it does have some pretty strong competition, as Fear's main sample is one of my favorite across DAMN. The track bar has many elements, most notably the I Don't Think I Can Find a Way to Make It on This Earth refrain from the 1973 track Poverty's Paradise by the American soul and funk band 24 Karat Black.
I don't think I could find a way to make it on this earth.
What's up, family? Yeah, this your cousin.
Kind of funny that this isn't the only sample on the album that references 24 carats. Coincidence aside though, I've already talked about how hard the writing in Fear hits me personally, and that refrain being sampled is truly the cherry on top for all the themes the track presents. But while I do think Fear's sample is a masterclass in samples that fit a song's narrative, Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst just has the better ones, I think, so I'm gonna give it the round here. Getting into the penultimate round now, and we have Compton vs GOD. Again, Real is a track with no listed sample, so it is eligible to skip. Thank God. And similar to the Kanye sample verses, the tracks in this penultimate round again only have 1 sample each. First up, Compton with a sample from the 1974 Formula 4 song, What's This World Coming To?
The new faith of Kendrick Lamar. This is King Kendrick Lamar. King Kendrick and I'm into...
And as for GOD, it features a sample from the 2014 Illmind track, End of the World. Interesting similarities in the titles of the samples, actually. And definitely not the strongest samples on either side here, but I think I am going to go with Compton's just for the explosiveness it adds to the track's instrumental. But with that round out of the way, you might be thinking, what song is going to go up against Duckworth for the real final round of the verses? And I'll admit, I was originally just going to skip GOD and have the final matchup be between Duckworth and Compton. But that truly didn't really seem that fair, since while I consider GOD both the worst song and the song with the worst sample on DAMN, it is still a full track, unlike Blood. And because I didn't want the final round to be a blowout like last time, since spoiler alert, Duckworth maybe has the best samples across all of DAMN, I slotted a pretty obvious pick for the end of this battle off of the deluxe of Good City. So as for the final round of the verses, with the score tied up 5-5, it's gonna all be decided with the Recipe versus Duckworth. Jumping right into it, the Recipe only has one sample, but as you may know, it's a pretty iconic one in hip-hop history. That of course is the vocal chop from Meet the Frownies by Mr. Twin Sister. I mean, what more is there to say, really? It's just a perfect use of vocals from another track, in my opinion. But man, it's got an absolute juggernaut of a song to face in Duckworth, boasting 7 samples in total. The first of the 3 instrumentals on this track features an insane chop courtesy of Ninth Wonder of the 1978 Ted Taylor track, Be Ever Wonderful.
Hail Mary, your marijuana times is hard. Pray with the hooligan, shadows all in the dark.
It also features drums from the 1972 song from Climax Blues band Mole on the Dole.
Life is one funny motherfucker. A true comedian, you gotta love him, you gotta trust him.
Then we've got the second instrumental, which samples a 1972 song by the band September called Ostavi Trag.
Couple of shooters caught a murder case. Fingerprints on the gun, they assuming, but witnesses couldn't prove it.
And lastly, the third and final beat samples the 2015 Hiatus Coyote track, Atari.
Out over the edge of town.
Crooked cops told Anthony he should kick it. He brushed him off and walked back to the Kentucky Fried Chicken. See at this chicken spot.
As well as drums from the beautifully titled 1975 track, Let the Drums Speak by the Fatback Band.
Southside Project, Chirac, the Terror Dome, drove to California with a woman on him and $500.
And I know I said lasty like a few seconds ago, but technically the real last samples of the track are the reverse segments of Blood and DNA that play at the end of it to symbolize the story of DAMN being told in reverse order. And now as for which track wins this round and decides the victor of this whole versus, drumroll please. I'm gonna go with Duckworth. The Recipe sample is a classic, but it still can't compete with 5 near-flawless sample chops across 3 different beats all in one song. Meaning DAMN is the official winner of the second episode of Sample for Sample. And it's a better album than Good City, and I will fight about that in the comments. If you enjoyed, make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel to see new uploads from me every single Saturday and sometimes Wednesday unless I say otherwise in my community posts. Also, as always, leave a comment letting me know about any samples I might have missed with either record on this video. Like I always say, I'm sure I missed at least one when it comes to these videos of mine. And again, if you really want me to cover even the tiniest sound effects for some reason, let me know in the comments. Also, I just released a new song. Check it out and the rest of my music with the link in the top right corner if you're interested. And finally, if you'd like to support the channel further, you can now become a member and receive early access to all of my videos, as well as a special shout out from me at the end of them, as you'll see on the screen right now. So join up if you're interested, it really does help me out a lot. But yeah, that's about it. I'll see you when Chromacopia drops.